Well, Daniel Bannoura, welcome to Masala Theology, Daniel Bannoura. It's good to have you here.
Hey, brother, so good to be with you for sure.
Or I should
This
say
is like
Dr.
this is a
Daniel.
big deal for me to join you. This is exciting.
Well, it's a big deal you're here for me and for my students who are going to be watching this recording at St. Stephen's University. And then I guess first off, congratulations are in order. You're officially Dr. Daniel Bannoura. How does
Yeah,
it
Dr.
feel?
Bannoura from now on. That's what he called me.
That's incredible. Yeah, tell us what you got your PhD in and yeah, where from?
Yeah, so I got it from the University of Notre Dame, uh, one of the best universities out there. I think I
No
had
kidding.
the best experience, just beautiful community, and my supervisor. For those who are interested in PhDs, I highly discourage you from doing it. But if having done it for 5 6 years of my life, like I'm not sure if it's the best investment of my time. But we can talk about that later. It, it's is a worthwhile investment if you are really committed to that kind of work. And
Mm,
it's a noble cause to pursue truth and to reflect and critique and analyze and produce something. So it's worthwhile in that sense. Uh, but I got it
uh,
from Notre Dame, and I'm at Notre Dame because of my advisor, Gabriel Reynolds, who's an important name in Quranic
mm,
studies. People do not know this about me. I have a certain public-facing persona that is more focused on Palestinian theology and Gaza and Christian Zionism. But actually, my joy, in my intellectually at least, is in the study of the Quran and Islamic history and Islamic origins in relationship to Christianity. That's not what
mm,
people know me for. But something I really enjoy and actually kind of miss right now. It just at the moment calls us to be more responsive to oppression and violence as we're seeing it today.
yeah.
So no one is paying attention to late antique history and the formation of the text of the Quran. But that's kind of my field.
Mm,
I did my PhD on the Quran. I'll keep this brief. But I looked basically the question you ask. One of the big questions in Quranic studies is how did the text come together? As
mm,
how was it redacted into one coherent text? And so I applied tools from biblical historical criticism, something called for the nerds out there redaction criticism, which is an attempt by biblical scholars to understand how the an author of a certain text in the Bible, a certain book,
mm,
put it together. What was the rationale? What were the sources? Why did Luke form the gospel in a way that is a bit more distinct and unique than
mm,
Matthew, than Mark? John is completely different from the synoptic gospels. So there are some tools and methods of inquiry into the collection, redaction, editing of the text until it reaches its final form. So I apply some of the tools from biblical redaction criticism onto the Quran, and I look specifically onto repeated, what we call variant traditions. So these are
mm,
repeated narratives in the Quran. I try to make sense of the repetition, the differences, the variances, the agreements, but most significantly, the disagreements between them. And what does that disagreement tell us about the collection editing of the text? Similar to the synoptic problem. Sorry for this is for the New Testament or Bible scholars. How do you understand, John's reformulation of the Last Supper? It exists at the end of the Gospels, the three synoptic Gospels, but in the Gospel of John, he puts it in the beginning. Well, why is he doing that? Or why does Luke seem to be a bit picky with a certain language that Matthew and Mark use, and he
mm,
tweaks it, develops it, replaces it? So these are kind of questions that are very curious and very fun in biblical studies, and I try to
mm.
adopt them in my study of the Quran.
My goodness, that is incredible. I love that you went into that and took us there. And we'll get into this a little bit later too, because, one of one of the unique contributions, I think, of Palestinian Christians to the global church is you can teach us how to understand and engage with our Muslim neighbors.
Mm,
There's no
yes.
need to fear our Muslim neighbors. side by side, resisting empire with our Muslim neighbors, and you've seen the best parts of the Islamic tradition. Anything about that from your perspective as
Yeah,
a Palestinian
yeah. Thanks
Christian
for
and
that
Muslim?
question, Joash. This is a field of study and inquiry for me that is interesting and relevant today, especially today. And I think moving forward, like spoiler alert, not that anyone cares, but I'll probably be focusing more on that moving forward than on
Mm,
my field, Quranic studies. I need to publish my dissertation and maybe a few articles, put a few articles out there, and then
mm,
kind of move on to this field. But the genocide in Gaza had revealed to me a very latent, very obvious Islamophobia,
mm,
just complete disregard for the lives of Muslims. And I'm convinced if the people of Gaza were Christians and white or Ukrainians, none of this would have happened. Right? There would be this kind of a sense of affinity and solidarity with white European Ukrainians versus brown Muslims, Muslim Arabs in Palestine. So I
mm,
think this kind of complete disregard for the lives, the dignity, the rights of the Palestinians, not just because of Gaza, but also over the last 78 years. Joash, this is not new. This is not just, oh, that's strange. A genocide was committed. No, this is
mm,
78 years of complete disregard for the lives of the Palestinians, their dignity, and their human rights. And especially coming from the West, that has been preaching to us, people from the East, about democracy and pluralism and international law. But when it comes to our own liberty and humanity and dignity and the application of human rights and international law on us, there's an exemption clause here that we were not aware of until the last 2 years, but especially over the last 78 years. So we've been exempted from Western democracy and liberalism, and so yeah, that's something that we have to counter. I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about it at length here. Um,
mm,
but specifically when it comes to Muslims, there's a lot of hostility and fear and just kind of disregard for them and their worth and dignity as humans. And whether it's the San Diego shooting from like a month ago in the U.S., or whether it's public discourse by politicians, whether it's kind of just fear and suspicion of a woman wearing a hijab, or
mm,
a bearded man, and there's an assumption of like radicalism and extremism just because they look different. That's embedded in culture. There's a sense of racialization that is used against Muslims, that they are perceived to be other, to be different, all
mm,
collectively to hold some kind of traits that are oppressive and violent and sexist or what have you. So that's a very common, this racialization of Muslims to be other and incompatible with the West and democracy. So we need to tackle that, and that Islamophobia is also very native to Western Christianity, and there's a long legacy of this that goes back to the Crusades,
mm,
even with the Reformation, kind of anxieties that Protestants were developing about Catholics, about the Jews, also
mm,
about the Ottomans, the Turks, um, and kind of frustrations they had. Why aren't Muslims converting? And what's wrong with Muslims? Why can't they get the wonder and beauty of Christianity? They must be uneducated. They must be unenlightened like we are. They
mm,
must be just savaged and driven by their impulses and the kind of carnal desires and not by the light of Christianity. So that kind of Islamophobia and bigotry towards Muslims, whether driven by geopolitics, the Ottoman Empire, the Crusades, or by just very harmful Enlightenment, ideology or ways of thinking, or what is now called Orientalism, just that overall just dismissive attitudes towards non-Christians, especially in the Middle East. The Muslim, the Arab is seen as this exotic, fetishized person in a tent riding a camel, and then you have the sexualized women of the belly dancers, and we see this all throughout the media, movies. A lot of movies we kind of grow up with, from
mm,
action movies with to like Aladdin, Disney's Aladdin, where this harmful language of the dumb what are they, soldiers or guards in the movie, or this kind of violence. Oh, you're gonna steal an apple, I'm gonna chop your arm off. That kind of violent, hostile assumptions that are kind of embedded. And we watch Aladdin, and it's a fun movie, but then you've been kind of brainwashed to think about Agrabah
Mm,
to be this violent, exotic, extreme place. Okay, this is like a long tirade here about Islamophobia, but it's embedded
yeah.
in our society, in our culture. And I think
Mm,
what Gaza had revealed to us is that Islamophobia or hostility or othering of Muslims could, at some point, lead to a genocide. And we saw that in Gaza.
mm. No, thank you for going there. Because I think the reality is that, I mean, I'll give an example of this, right? Like, one of the things we're going to talk about here is Christian Zionism. And, um, I guess before we go into that, how would you describe Christian Zionism? I mean, because you occupy an interesting space, you are an academic who can put
Mm.
words to experiences, and at the same time, you're a Palestinian Christian. You've lived the effects of Christian Zionism. So, how would you, from your perspective, describe it?
Yeah, I got a comment on the title of this conversation, Decolonizing Christian Zionism. And I'm like, I don't think we can do that. I don't think we can decolonize an ideology that is
Yeah.
predicated on colonization and oppression and dehumanization. Um,
Mm,
but that's an important kind of thing to reflect on for sure. How do we maybe decolonizing our faith? But that by necessity means that we have to reject Christian Zionism
yeah.
as an ideology of violence and hate and bigotry that has to be removed from our vocabulary and from our witness as Christians. Christian Zionism, there are different definitions for it, but broadly speaking, it's Christian political support for Israel. It's
Mm,
it's not just theology, bad theology. We have bad theology. Christians are good at really creating, developing bad theologies and awful theologies. But in this sense, it's goes hand in hand with bigotry. So, like we said here, anti-Arab, anti-Muslim bigotry. If you consider Palestinians to be fully human, who deserve dignity, who carry God in them because of the image and likeness of God in them, surely you'd advocate for democracy and their freedom and the destruction, the end of the apartheid in the West Bank and Gaza and in Israel proper. But there's a
mm,
complete disregard for their humanity. But it's
mm,
basically this kind of complete, unconditional, uncritical, unnuanced, flat, binary support for Israel that is driven by Christian convictions and beliefs, and specifically specific readings of the scriptures that tend to elevate the Jewish people or the people of Israel who are mostly Jews to be unique. To have there's some kind of divine protection or covenantal relationship or end times kind of apocalyptic plan for these people that set them apart from everyone else. So they are distinct
mm,
because of their identity, not because of who they are, but because of a certain belief in their blood or their lineage that makes them distinct. And it's based on some readings of Genesis 12, Genesis 15, the
mm,
prophets, beliefs about the covenant that God is faithful, does not reject the Jewish people, his people, and kind of creates this dual covenant model where you have the church that follows a covenant through Christ.
mm,
And then there's another covenant that's still operative, which is the covenant of the law that is still continuing today. So you could be a Buddhist who comes from a Jewish family, you still have that covenant. You could be an atheist, you could be a criminal, you can be anything you want, no conditions, no limitations. If you're a Jew or your mother is a Jew or a grandmother is a Jew, then you have that kind of special status, and therefore Christians have to support you. I can critique it some more, but it's mostly that. So there's political support. It's not that
mm,
we need to care and love the Jewish people. It also means we need to support Israel no matter what. We need to give Israel weapons. We need to give them money. We need to veto UN resolutions against the policies of Israel.
mm,
Little, if any, probably no concern for international law, for UN resolutions, for the lives, dignities, freedoms, a livelihood of the Palestinians. An ideology of supremacy and ethnic supremacy and racism that says one people group is privileged up and against the other people group. So it's fundamentally, just to be blunt, keep it brief and quick, it's an ideology.
Mm,
Christian Zionism is an ideology of supremacy and violence that puts the rights and freedoms and protections of one people group as necessarily um, as above the rights and freedoms and dignity of the other people, the Palestinian people.
mm. Thank you for
And
that,
and
Daniel.
sorry, Joash, and I would
Yeah,
say just to keep it about theological. And
yeah,
now a lot
yeah.
of us are making the point here that it
Mm,
is a kind of heresy as well. Heresy is
mm,
defined as as a theological position that kind of challenges the orthodox belief about the identity of Christ to be
mm,
human and fully divine. So that's kind of these are the Christian councils and how we dealt from Nicaea to Chalcedon, how we dealt with the natures or nature of Jesus. Christian Zionism is a form of heresy as well because it negates the authority and finality of Christ's work on the cross and his identity as the fulfillment of the prophets. And now Christ is pushed aside. He becomes irrelevant. His teachings about loving neighbors and loving your enemies become irrelevant. No Christian Zionist is quoting Matthew 5 to 7. So they
mm,
push him aside and replace him from being the fulfillment of the law and the promises and the prophets with a geopolitical state established in 1948. So it's a
wow.
form of clear heresy that rejects Jesus and replaces him, supersessionist in a supersessionist way, replaces
Yeah.
him with something else. So that's an act of like, for us as Orthodox Christians, like proper Bible believing Christians, I think is very obviously a case of radical thinking that makes Christ insufficient. His work on the
Mm,
cross is incomplete until randomly 2000 years later something would happen that would fulfill the work of Christ. So Christ, his work was dependent on the acts of the British Empire in the 20th century and Jewish lobbying in Europe that brought
mm,
about the Israeli state. So it's a clear case of heretical thinking that has infested and distorted our faith as Christians, I think.
mm. Thanks for calling it what it is, which is heresy. And it's also heresy because it's a form of violence that then kills Palestinian lives, including Palestinian Christians and the
Sure, yeah.
Palestinian church that's also getting bombed in Gaza right now. So, Daniel, just to switch gears a little bit, we've talked a little bit about the Palestinian church, and there's right now an institutionalized Palestinian church resistance to Christian Zionism, which is Bethlehem Bible College and the Bethlehem Institute for Peace and Justice. You work as Director of Public Engagement at BIPJ, Bethlehem Institute for Peace and Justice. Tell us a little bit about what your resistance work to empire there looks like, and a little bit about BIPJ for those who are new.
Just for more context, Palestinian Christians, we exist. Hi, everybody. We've been around for 2,000 years. If you're a Christian, it's because of someone who is a Palestinian Christian who came before me
Yes.
2,000 years ago and shared the gospel with someone else. And then eventually your ancestors became Christian.
Mm,
So we've been around for 2,000 years. We kept the faith. We've held fast to that place, our home, the Holy Land, what they call the Holy Land,
mm,
which is our home, which is our place. And we've been there witnessing to Christ in his land for 2,000 years. Um,
mm,
we're a small community now. We used to be about 11% 100 years ago of the population. Now we're down to 1% of the population, a very small minority,
mm,
mostly through the ethnic cleansing that happened in 1948, the eradication of so many villages and towns to make a room for a Jewish state. A lot of Palestinian Christians were pushed out, and others through migration, pursuing economic, political stability. Who Christians tend to be more affluent, more educated than the average citizen. Many of them just opted out and left Palestine and became, residents of Canada, the U.S., Europe, Latin America. There's a massive Palestinian, especially Christian Palestinian population in Latin America as well. The majority of Arabs in the U.S. are Christians. You have
mm,
more Arab Christians in the U.S. than you have Arab Muslims, and
mm,
a lot of these are Palestinian Christians. So that's our community. There's a very diverse community, mostly Orthodox and Catholic. That's the majority. Historically, the church in the East is Orthodox, but now you have also Catholics, and the two big churches in the Middle East tend to be either Orthodox and Catholic, and
Mm,
some would be Protestant. Um, and there's a bunch of them, whether mainline, whether evangelical.
mm,
So now Bethlehem Bible College is a small evangelical college in Bethlehem, and it's been there for I think 50 years or so. I
mm,
used to teach at the college in 2016 till 2020 until I came to the US for my PhD. Um,
mm,
and it's known for the development of a robust evangelical Palestinian theology
mm,
through people like Alex Awad, Yohanna Catenaccio, Mundar Ishaq, and so on, President Jack Sara. Just a beautiful community of theologians, leaders who are committed to serving Christ, to committed to the scriptures, to our faith, but also are trying to be faithful to the reality and responding to the challenges facing the Palestinian community in Palestine, which is primarily through the political system of the occupation or the Israeli
mm.
apartheid against the Palestinians. So they've developed an evangelical Palestinian response to that reality. In 2010, this is hopefully this is not a long-winded history, but hopefully this is helpful. In
Yeah.
2010, the college, through the leadership of Pastor Alex Awad, launched a conference in Bethlehem called Christ at the Checkpoint,
Mm,
based on the premise: if Christ comes today, comes to our land, stands at this Israeli military checkpoint, how would he respond? What would the
mm,
Christ-like response to this reality of occupation, militarism, violence, confiscation of land, denial of rights of movement, denial of access to water and electricity? How would Christ respond? I mean, more crucially, we're asking Christians, hey, what should the church's response be to this reality on the ground? So that was the
mm,
beginning of the college's movement towards reflecting theologically and biblically on the reality on the ground. Um, move Fast forward, there's been a lot of development and writings. Pastor Mundar Ishaq becomes more prominent. He does his PhD at Oxford Center for Missional Studies, writes his PhD on the Bible. And
mm,
you have others who come to the fore as biblical scholars, theologians, who are trying specifically now not to ask evangelicals to please listen to us, but also to critique and respond to Christian Zionism. So that
mm,
becomes like a hallmark of the work we're doing, where we are saying, hey, Christian Zionism it's not just we just disagree with Christian Zionists. We're also saying Christian Zionism is awful. Christian Zionism is really bad. Christian Zionism is
mm,
actually has been the driving force for the oppression, our oppression. If it wasn't for the Christian evangelicals, especially in the US, we would be a free people. The
mm,
occupation would end. But it's because of the strength of the Israel lobby or the Zionist Christian support for Israel through CUFI and other organizations, this
mm,
would not have not been sustained for this long. So now we were initially we were a bit more timid. It's like, hey guys, could you talk to us? We're here. And then trying to have dialogue, but now we're saying no, we cannot accept this anymore. This Christian Zionism, Christian support for Israel, is not a threat on our own existence as a community of faith, but
mm,
it's also a scandal, an evangelical scandal or a theological scandal that has um, uh, distorted the faith and has led many Christians, as we have seen in Gaza, down a really destructive and harmful and violent path. And we need to
mm,
confront it. And we're asking a lot of our siblings in the faith, this is a time for repentance and lament and renewal. And this is a time to become more faithful in our obedience to Christ.
mm,
Okay, long story here, but eventually, recently, the institute existed in the college in the form of offering online courses, very small kind of offerings by the college. But then after the genocide in Gaza, my Pastor Munder and others of us kind of came together, thinking about our responsibility at this moment in response to Christian Zionism and the genocide. So we
Mm,
thought, hey, let's kind of reorganize the institute. Let's come together as a group and try to pr- play a more proactive, authoritative role in responding to this moment we're in. Last year, we organized a conference in the US called Church at the Crossroads, which
mm,
was a super impactful gathering, brought together 800 Christians for a time of fellowship, worship, learning, and then it's like, okay, well, this is it. Like, we need to do this. So we organized ourselves and launched just recently, within a few, I think at the beginning of the year or December of last year, or relaunched as a new organization headed by Pastor Mudras Haq. And there's a bunch of us Palestinians and Americans working together. And basically, it's an institute of the college that primarily seeks to encourage the global church, especially evangelicals, especially those in the West, uh,
mm,
to examine their theology and to come alongside us in the pursuit of peace and justice in Palestine and in Israel. So that's kind of
mm.
broadly our mission, and I specifically work on our public engagement work through the conferences, podcasting, and media and other kind of ventures that they will kind of try to help people to come alongside us, listen, engage with us, and move towards action. Our job is not just to inspire you with our TED-like talks, but to call you to action, to be faithful um, to what the Spirit is telling the church, and to be committed to the work of peacemaking today, especially in response to the Gaza genocide.
That's so good. Yeah, and I think one of the things that I've appreciated learning from your work at BIPJ is, um, I think it's Mitri Rahib who writes about, the hardware is the bombs that's killing
Right.
Palestinian lives right now, and the software is Christian Zionism, and that's the thing that BIPJ is working to take on, even with the U.S. and Canadian church, the church in the West. This the software that enables our participation in oppressive systems and structures towards even the Palestinian church and then all our Palestinian neighbors right now. Like we are complicit in the dropping of the bombs
Yeah.
by buying into these mindsets and these ideologies that are shaped by empire ultimately. But tell us, yeah, tell us a little bit about
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
that.
thanks for referencing that line from Mitri Rahib. Highly recommend people, Mitri Rahib, look him up, read anything by him. Uh, but yeah, I would also kind of take a bigger picture kind of approach to this,
Please.
that Christians from, I don't know, the fourth century have
Mm,
been excellent, very proficient in developing theologies and providing ethical religious justifications for all kinds of evil, all kinds of
mm,
wars, whether it's, European conquest of Turtle Island, sanctioned by the Pope, right? Whether
mm,
it's the genocides of the natives in the Americas, Mesoamerica and Latin America or Northern America, whether it's slavery, very clear biblical passages used for that to justify it, right? The curse of Ham
mm,
and all that stuff. Whether it's segregation, Jim Crow, whether it's anti-Semitism, just complete disregard for the Jewish people and their humanity, and we saw what that led to, right? The Holocaust. Whether it's apartheid in South Africa, Christians have always been at the forefront of justifying this and excusing this, and also baptizing this, sanctifying this in Christian language, right? It makes sense that you would not mix the races. That's what the Bible says. It makes sense that it's okay to be a slave. That's what the Bible says, right? It's okay to kill the Jews, or to discriminate against them. They rejected Jesus. Obviously, the blood of Jesus is on their hands. So all of this always kind of Christians have like excelled at providing very strong theological and moral justification for evil.
mm,
Christian Zionism and just the latest iteration of this. Like there's nothing. It's very uncreative. Like it's dull. Like it just repeats the same line of bigotry and dehumanization. There's no
mm.
creativity. There's no beauty in it. There's no wonder in it. It's just very. It's another layer of that awful bigotry towards the others. At some point, the other was the native, right? The Native American, or the Maori, or the Aboriginals, or the First Nations, right? Or the black folks from Africa, or Muslims, or Arabs, or Jews, right? Or immigrants right now, or queer people, right? Like you just any category, just anyone who's not like you, who's different, you can easily find reasons to hate them. Catholic Italians, when they came to this country, to the US, oh, look, they're Catholics, they're Italians. They're gonna dilute the Protestant culture in this country. So we need to, like, push them aside. So there's always, actually, speaking of Islamophobia, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine.
Hmm.
Sorry, this is a tangent, but the
No,
language
please.
that is used today against Muslims, they don't belong in the West. The culture differences, all that's the same arguments. This is like mind blowing. Were used against Catholics, Catholic Irish and Italians when they came to the U.S. They don't belong here. They're not Protestants. They don't fit in. They believe in these kind of crazy things. So it's like the same lines of like bigotry and hatred. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, that's kind of the work we have to do. Just so sad. Just so sad. 2026, and we're still like, this is baseline, guys. like what are we doing? And it's just so sad that, like, hey, how about we love our neighbors? How about we love the enemy? It's like in the Gospels, say this is like Matthew 5, guys. Like, we haven't gone to the epistles of Paul. This is like the beginning of the ministry of Jesus, and it's just sad that we have to keep doing that. And it's sad that the church, who proclaims Christ, who says that
Hmm.
we are known by our fruit, we keep saying these things. I'm like, man, when it actually matters, we just don't care about this stuff. And Gaza has revealed this ugly underbelly of Western Christianity.
Hmm.
And I don't want to be too harsh on Western Christianity. There's a lot of goodness and beauty and tradition that is rich, but
No,
like,
do it. Do it
like
because you know what's more harsh? Dying under bombs, right? So,
there you
like,
go.
just to
Yeah,
put things in perspective. So, please lean in.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so sad. It's just so sad that, like, these are my siblings. Like, um if it was anyone else, I was like, okay, well, I guess they're not Christians. Maybe they're just, their ideology is a bit different. But the gospel is true. The gospel is
Hmm.
obvious. It's clear. Like, do we believe the gospel? Like, these are the questions we're asking. Like, between those who
Yes.
say that Christ is Lord and they're signing bombs, and between the Muslims in Gaza who are dying by these Christians, like like who's actually following Jesus here? Like, who is
Hmm.
Christ with? Is it with those? Is he with those who write the names on the bombs, who send the billions of dollars to kill people, or is it the people of Gaza, the Muslims in Gaza? So yeah,
Hmm.
this Gaza has revealed this kind of ugly, like, reality. Our faith has been corrupted for a very long time, and this is a time for awakening. This is a time for us to stand up and reject any impulse for violence and dehumanization, and gonna go back to the gospel of Christ, the gospel of goodness and life, and life more abundant that is given to us. And we see this on the cross. We see this on that naked body on the cross, who calls us to this radical commitment to sacrifice and to love of neighbor and of God. And yeah, I think a lot of Christians need Jesus today more than ever.
Yeah, yeah, that's so good. That's so true. Thanks for that. And I'm thinking also of one of my seminary professors, prominent New Testament scholar, you know who I'm talking about, wrote an article for Christianity Today right as Gaza was starting to get bombed, and basically provided theological justification for the bombing in Gaza, saying things like, oh, it's okay. They're just a bunch of Baal worshippers anyway, right? Like such dehumanizing language, by weaponizing scripture and
Right.
completely neglecting the teachings of Jesus. Um, how do Palestinian Christians? I mean, I know how you feel when you see dehumanizing language like this because he's talking about you too. But how do Palestinian Christians respond? What, yeah, what, like maybe help us draw closer to your humanity as siblings in Christ when you hear dehumanizing rhetoric from the Western Church like this.
I mean, Joash, I wish you were interviewing me to talk about my research. like, like, I mean,
That's
I hate it.
easier.
I mean, like obviously, it's like I just find so much delight in my research, and I have to talk about this. I have to humanize myself. Um, Obviously, I want to do it. I want to be in conversation with you, my brother. But it's just a sad reality that
Of
again
course.
we're just discussing baseline things. It's like, can you see God in the people of Gaza? You know that they carry God in them. They
Yes.
reflect God. They're icons. And why is it
Yes.
so hard for you to see it? I don't, but I don't know how to answer the question. There's a lot that we have to tackle. I am saying, from what I just said, this is endemic. This is not a bug. It's a feature in Christianity. So, to your point, we need to decolonize Christianity. And like that language might be a bit odd for some people. Like, what do you mean decolonize Christianity? I mean, if you have any questions, read Joash's book on this. uh, but it's just really like,
We're quote Palestinian Christians
yes,
teaching
yes,
us how to
yes.
do it.
Yeah, no, for sure. But it's just like there is a Christian, there's an association with power and violence
Mm,
that has been normalized in the church.
mm,
Maybe all the way it began with Constantine. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Maybe. I think I see that, right? When now you have power, now you are victimized and oppressed for 400, 300 years, and suddenly Constantine, the king, the emperor, becomes doesn't become a Christian, but then he supports you, and then he helps you with the Nicene Creed and the Nicene Council. It's like, okay, well, this is actually kind of attractive. Let's join
mm,
forces with power. And now the oppressed, the minority has gained a lot of power, and I can see the allure of power, and we see it today, right? This Christian obsession with we want to gain power over the
mm,
dominions of the earth, right? And you see it happening in the U.S. in a very strong way right now. Maybe that's where it began, and and Joash, there's something unique in our perspective here as Christians who are not, while we have been impacted by um, maybe attracted to Western Christianities. I think you also have a story there about
mm,
your family and your background. Um, but we come from a legacy, and maybe that's why we're attracted to Western Christianity, because it gave us that facade, that presentation of power and of being
mm,
put together and being so clean and being so proper.
mm,
But we come from a disempowered Christianity, right? In the Middle East,
mm,
in Asia, in India, in Palestine, we never had any significant power as Christians, at least for the last 1600 years or 1500 years, since the rise of Islam and Islamic conquest into the Christian heartland. So we've never had power, effective power. So we were never seduced by it. But then we developed a very robust and rich and beautiful ways to be good neighbors and um, know how to manage the Sultan, and being in the court of the Sultan and translating Greek philosophy into Syriac and Arabic, and help with that kind of
mm,
rich medieval culture of like philosophical learning and even scholasticism. Like we were played a role in that. We also developed a very cool theological tradition of Arabic Christian or Greek Christian theology that came out from the heartland. You had the monks in the Judean desert
mm,
developing, copying the scriptures and developing Christian commentaries on Galen or Aristotle, right? But also we
mm,
learned how to speak Arabic, and we learned how to get along with Muslims, and we built schools and hospitals, and we took care of our Muslim neighbors, right?
mm,
And we found healthy ways to get along and be neighborly, to love our neighbors as ourselves. Um, but it's just a different story in the West, right? It's a West that is based on expansion, on power, on wealth, on extraction, and that's never been our story. So that's kind of there's that orientation, the reorientation that Christians from the Middle East, from Palestine, from India could bring to the church. Not that it's special, not that it's better, but it's a different perspective. I think is a bit more authentic to the gospel, to the life of Jesus. The naked homeless man, right, who's in the streets, doesn't have a place to lay his head, um,
mm,
who didn't have a job, didn't have wealth, who loved people radically,
mm,
who resisted the allures of power and dominion. He goes up to the hill and he sees all the dominions, and he said, "Get behind me, Satan! This is." That's not my calling. But he goes to Matthew 25. He tells us that he is with the naked and with the poor and with the imprisoned. He's the one who identifies with them. No, he becomes them. He is them, right? He is the
Mhm.
one who is disempowered, who's the one who is oppressed by the powers, by the empire. And that's our Jesus, right? That's who we are taught to emulate. And the one who's eventually been destroyed, who was killed by the empire, by those in power. He was rejected, attacked, handed over by religious power, by the Pharisees and the religious political structures of the time. So that is our Christ, Messiah who is on the cross, the one who takes on death and who is disempowered, who is hung on the cross and receives the wrath of violence and the wrath of empire. So
Mhm.
yeah, for me, when I see that kind of Christianity, um, it's like I just don't know where that comes from. Does it come from
Yeah.
the gospel? It doesn't come from the life of Christ. So that's some of the work we have to do. Again, it's like baseline work. Hey guys, let's look at Jesus again.
Yeah.
Something I would say about Christian Zionists is like they never quote Jesus. Like you would be hard pressed to find a Christian Zionist who's quoting Matthew 5 or 6 or 7, right? Or Matthew 25 or
Wow.
Luke 4, right? They're quoting Genesis 12, Genesis 15, the
Mhm.
prophets Ezekiel or Isaiah about the restoration of Israel, or maybe if you kind of push them, they would quote Romans 11 to talk about the promises of God. But like,
Mhm.
why aren't you quoting Romans like Matthew or Luke or Mark, right, or John,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of the thing. That's again the scandal of Christian Zionism, right? But that's the thing is
Yes.
like because Christ does not make sense. Christ is weak. Right? The Sermon on the Mount is a weak way to think and to live. Like that's not how you think.
Mhm.
And they just don't like. They keep telling us Christ is Lord and Savior. I'm like, really? Is he though? Like, really, really is he? I just like, I just don't think they think. Many Christians. I don't want to be we're too sweeping or generalizing here, but many Christians just do not think that Christ is Lord, and they give more priority to um, a decontextualized, cherry-picked reading of Genesis 12 and 15 or Isaiah than to Christ Himself. So there's a lot of work we have to do with ideology, with this inherited Orientalism and bigotry in the church,
Yeah.
the allure of power and domination that has infected the church, all the way to this is not how we read Genesis 12. Like this is like hermeneutics 101. This is not how you should read the Bible. This is not what Paul meant in Romans 11. Like this is like Sunday school stuff we have to do. So yeah,
Mm.
different ways to do it, different approaches. Some of it is historical, some of it is theological, some of it is biblical, some of it is just your standard typical bigotry towards those who are different than you. That all of these things we have to tackle.
Man, Daniel, I appreciate this so much. You've been dropping some really cool theology on us. Theology that makes the gospel actually sound like good news to the poor and the oppressed,
Yeah.
right? And you've lived it. And I think there's so much rich theology that Palestinian Christians and the Palestinian church have to offer to the Western church, the global church at this time. This is why I'm having my students read Faith in the Face of Empire right now
Ah,
this
yes,
semester with Mitri
yes.
Rahed alongside my book, and just like going deeper into the voices of the heretics of empire in that context, who are the beloved of God, because Jesus was himself a Palestinian heretic of the Roman Empire, right? And so but maybe what I'm curious about is for people who there are a lot of people who feel helpless right now, especially with the continued settler violence happening in West Bank. Those stories are still coming in. The bombs are still being dropped in Gaza, by the way. That hasn't stopped, right? So these aren't things of the past. Violence is still happening right now. And how would you encourage, if there were some tangible next steps you would give us to move from that helplessness to action with BIPJ, with Bethlehem Institute for Peace and Justice, in solidarity with Palestinian Christians? How would you channel our steps and encourage us to move forward?
it's an odd question to ask me as a Palestinian. How can I encourage Western Christians? I don't think that's my job.
No,
But
not at all.
um, I can,
Tell us how we can get better at standing in solidarity.
yeah,
Please.
yeah,
That's the
that's,
question.
that's
Yes.
another way to phrase it. Um,
Yes.
yeah, like please do not be discouraged. If I can give you a kind of pastoral advice, I'm a son of a pastor. Like, just trust, and I'm telling you this as a Palestinian, and I hold the marks of the violence against me and oppression on my body and the body of my people. Like just this is there's a place for lament and grief and a sense of hopelessness. It's healthy, it's natural. Go through it. Don't rush out of it. But also, hopefully, you'd have a sense of of the hope that we have in Christ.
Mm,
That at the end of the day, um, death does not win. Like at the end of the day, the tomb is open, and that is not just a story we tell ourselves because it kind of feels nice. It's the whole of our faith is predicated on that story. Um, Maybe if you're like this is like a season for farming. I don't know. I'm a I'm a farmer, and I read Wendell Berry, and I get a lot of
mhm,
joy from reading poetry on farming. And there's this line I forgot. I was just reading this poem the other day, and there's this thing like Wendell Berry talks about, like putting your hands in the dark soil, the dead soil, and then planting the seed in it, and then the light that is in the seed like life comes out and produces life from the dead dark soil. Life comes out, that, and that's those are the, if you're depressed, go plant. There's this beauty of life always comes out of death, and the mucus and the composted stuff, all of that stuff has the energy and the capacity to bring life. So
mm,
that's what keeps me hopeful farming. Reading Wendell. So maybe that's what people can do. But just gonna just hold fast to hope of the resurrection that is given to all of us. All of us are to experience that resurrection hope, hopefully now and hopefully later. But that should be our drive. Now, practically speaking, but if we have that hope, surely hope is not a sentiment. Oh, I feel better now. Hope has to mean action.
mm,
You're working towards that because it's going to happen. It's coming. I have to be involved in that work. I can't just passively receive it. So hope has to lead to action, right? So there's a lot you can do. One, shameless plugs here. Thanks, Joash, for giving me the platform. Um, Listen to Palestinian Christians. Check out my podcast, Across the Divide. Um,
yes.
when it comes to BIP, so Across the Divide now is part of BIPJ. When it comes to BIPJ, two big things are happening this year. This is where you can come, listen, engage with your Palestinian siblings. Um, Church at the Crossroads, the conference we did in the US last year, we're doing it again this year in Atlanta, November 5 to 7. Come to Atlanta and be with us. Christ at the Church at the Crossroads.com is the website. Register, join us. Maybe even more, I would have a bigger desire for you to be involved with, which is the Christ at the Checkpoint conference happening over Christmas break, December 27th to the 31st. Come, maybe celebrate Christmas in Bethlehem. It's kind of
Mm,
magical. But
mhm,
if you cannot, come on the 27th and join us for like a week long of activities, of learning, of talks, of visits, a transformative experience. I tell you, like I promise you. So these are some practical ways where you can come in solidarity, listen to us, engage with us, think, ponder ways you can be involved in the work of peacemaking. Now, when it comes to action and being proactive, whether you can do it through financial support, supporting BIPJ, bipj.org, do it. Go now, do it. Click on it. But also um, you can also think of ways to support Christian ministries. You can think of ways to engage with your local church or faith community. Do a Bible study. Read Mitre Rahib. Read Mother's Haq. Watch a documentary. Read a book, a novel, history.
mm,
Talk to your pastor. Talk to your people of faith. Be in the streets. Protest. Um, there's so many things people can do. Go
mhm,
lobby. Like, I don't know. Send a letter to your representative. There's so many different layers of actions. each according to their abilities. But some of the ways you can do it right now is to come alongside Palestinian Christians, engage with us, listen to what we are saying. Um, and maybe attending a conference now could open for you imaginative and creative ways to think about action moving forward. But there are a lot of resources available for the church, whether to read documents, to study, to listen, to watch, to engage, to support financially, to be involved in solidarity action, visiting us on the ground. All of these things are available. Uh, so this is a time for action. Whatever works, do it. Whatever kind of talent you have, whatever ability you have, just kind of pursue it. And that is
Mm.
good, and that's good, and that's sufficient in many ways.
That's incredible, Daniel. And if I can also advocate for you and for BIPJ, I'll say this, like, I sit on the BIPJ advisor circle and have learned so much from just being in relationship with you and Munter and others. Um, one of the first things I did before even joining the advisor circle was becoming a monthly donor with BIPJ myself. Now, someone in the comments said, it's almost too easy to throw money at causes and at things like this as well. But I'll say this: when I jumped in as a monthly donor, I asked BIPJ, "How many monthly donors do you currently have?" And it was only a handful. There weren't that many. So even though it is easy to throw money, people aren't throwing money. That's the reality of it. So,
Yeah,
so if you're
you're not.
listening to
Yeah,
this, right, right.
you're not
Uh,
throwing money. You're supporting, sustaining Palestinian Christians to keep speaking up. You're creating for us a sustainable system where we can continue, we can strategize, we can plan. So this is not throwing money at anyone. This is coming alongside us in solidarity and in support. If you don't want to throw money at us, think of other ways you can use your resources. Your resources are not just money. So whatever talent you have, whatever that looks like, use it. What is expected is not throwing money, is action, is involvement, is to be involved in the hard work of being a peacemaker. So what does it look like for you to be a peacemaker? What is your plan to love the Palestinian people? Whatever answer you can find, just do it.
yeah,
It
that's good.
could look anything. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, yeah. And I'll even say this, like, maybe you're in a season of discernment now. You're like, Holy Spirit, show me how I can get more involved in supporting the Palestinian church through institutions like BIPJ. If that's you, a next great step is to just become a monthly donor with BIPJ.
Yes.
You can give while you're discerning, and I think God will use our giving in that season of discerning as a sacrificial way to strengthen that discerning journey, because now you have some skin in the game, and whatever you're able to give monthly, $30 a month, $50 a month, 100 a month, just give whatever you can give monthly, and it makes a world of difference in putting on conversations like this for BIPJ, and putting on conferences like the ones you talked about, hosting people, that kind of stuff. There's right now, all the resources, so many of the resources are on the side of empire. And the church has resources, but Christians tend to not at times give generously, assuming that there are others stepping in. And so, take full advantage of this opportunity. And thanks for dropping the link in the chat, Daniel. I'll also drop the link in the show notes and
Yeah.
the recording that we send out later. But it's bipj.org/donate. And that's a great next step to getting more involved. And Daniel, tell us about where people can find you, Across the Divide podcast, any other work that you do, anything else that you want to encourage people to go look for you.
Yeah, I'm building a website right now, so people can find me there. But no, I think social media, Substack. I'm trying to develop my Substack right now. I'm working on a piece right now, to publish it there. Yeah, I don't think I want people to go follow me per se. I mean, they can, but I would kind of really encourage people to be involved in BIPJ's work. I think it's really essential. Um, and they can sign up for the newsletter, and that's a way for them to be involved in the work we're doing. But yeah,
Yes.
Substack, social media, Instagram mostly. My website, danielbannoura.com, but there's nothing there that you would do. Yeah, I would push everyone towards BIPJ right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, Daniel, you already alluded to this, but if you're a part of a church, a small group, uh, discern in community, wrestle in community.
Yeah,
How do we not forget our Palestinian siblings just because the news cycle has moved on? They're still suffering right now. The Palestinian church is still suffering. So discern, wrestle. We have resources, Mitri Raheb's book, Munter Isaac's books, so many others. And I know at BLPJ we're giving thought to how do we develop resources for churches to do this work
right.
together because there are Christian Zionist resources available in abundance for our churches, but not as many on this side. So do that wrestling work. And Daniel, anything else you want to add
Yeah,
to
we're
that?
also developing a lot of resources at the institute. So we're working now. Maybe I shouldn't be telling you this, but we're working on an Advent devotional coming out, hopefully by November by the conference. Fingers crossed
Nice.
that works out. So that's going to be a resource with reflections and commentary by Palestinian Christians. Also developing a series of educational videos that deal with certain topics on faith, on dispensationalism, on the Bible, Christian Zionism. So these would be good resources to share with your friends and maybe have a Bible study group and watch the video and discuss. Active in developing resources right now. We have a website for resources, a resource hub, bipj.info. Um, Still under works. It is there, but that's a source that could be a hub for resources. I'm also leading at my local church. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I'm leading a 6 week like Bible studies on Palestine and peacemaking, and I'm planning to develop that resource to be more publicly available for church communities. So these would be study guides for Bible studies and church groups to go over this topic. So all of these things are in the works right now. So that's why sign up, support BIPJ, and help us continue developing these resources.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, and if you want to get your church more engaged and want to, process questions, like reach out to either of us. We can also send you resource ideas. And then the other thing I want to say is St. Stephen's University, where I work, and BIPJ, Bethlehem Institute of Peace and Justice, have a partnership where you can actually, if you're in the US or Canada, you can study and get credits at the graduate level for graduate level theological studies with BIPJ through St. Stephen's University, and yeah, get credit from a North American institution and BIPJ that way together. So that's another great avenue. You can just look that up on SSU or BIPJ's website and take classes that way too. But yeah, do get engaged in this work. Do keep wrestling, and do keep inviting others into that journey of wrestling too, folks. Daniel, any parting words or wisdom here for us?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Joash. Thank you for this conversation. This has been delightful. Yeah, like you said, Joash, the genocide hasn't ended. People are being killed left and right. Land of Palestinians is being taken on a daily basis. People are being killed in Lebanon, Palestine, throughout the region. Um, Christian complicity isn't over. You don't just move on. We have to reckon. We have to deal with it. So this is not over. The Palestinians are steadfast, are not going anywhere. Um, but like Pastor Munder once said in a sermon, like we'll be okay as Palestinians. We'll survive. The meek will inherit the earth.
Mhm.
Um, but we're concerned for the church. We're like genuinely concerned for our witness. When you if you care about like missions and evangelism, do you think Muslims are gonna listen to Christians right now and say, "Yeah, I want to become a Christian"? When they've seen what Christians have been preaching, I truly believe, and maybe I'm exaggerating, maybe because there's a bias because I'm a Palestinian. I really think Gaza shows a theological crisis, like truly, like there's a crisis in our faith. And many Christians have opted, just like German Christians in the 30s and 40s, opted to be quiet, to be passive. If you've wondered, I don't want to guilt you, I promise, what you would have done during Germany in the 30s, or what would have done during slavery in the US, or the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s. or whatever.
Mm,
Ask yourself, what am I doing right now? And I just think many times Christians were behind on so many of these things. We excused it. We were too busy. We were too Christian to
mm,
be truly faithful. So this is a time for us to step up. This is a time for us to cleanse our house, cleanse our theology, decolonize our theology, and just pursue a more faithful Christianity that looks a bit more than Jesus, than the empire. Um, and this is it. Like we are the hands and feet of Christ on earth. And this is a time for action. This is a time to harvest, to be in the field, and to harvest and to bring fruit. So let's do it, and let's do it together.
mm. Thank you, Daniel. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this episode of Masala Chai Theology. Do follow Daniel, do go support BIPJ, and we'll keep the conversation going. Daniel, thank you for making the time, brother. Blessings to you.
Thank, thank you, Joash.
Take care.